Welcome back to Live from the Pit. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we're sitting here with Annie Davis from Trashy Annie, just down the road a little bit, down in Austin. How's it going today?
It's going great. How are you, Tom?
Doing well, doing well. Just kind of trying to avoid this Texas heat, but I'm not telling you
Yep,
anything you don't know. So
that's right.
excited to have you on. It was kind of a weird fate thing that just kind of happened. You happened to message on one of my posts randomly on Facebook, and I asked if you wanted to do this. It just kind of worked out. So I'm really excited to sit down and chat with you a little bit.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're based out of Austin now, but you were born in Texas, and grew up in Oregon, you said, correct?
Yep. And then moved back down here in the end of 2011 and got into music during the pandemic. So I've
Okay.
been down in Texas for, 10, 12 years, something like that.
Cool, cool. And so you you got in straight during the pandemic, or was music like something there that was there
Well,
beforehand?
so I played trumpet. I taught myself to play trumpet as a kid. So I grew up on welfare and food stamps and super poor. And I was like, there's going to be no money for college. I need a skill. And
Mm-hmm.
so I decided to start playing the trumpet. I borrowed a trumpet from my elementary school and just I fell in love with music and ended up putting myself through college on trumpet scholarship and then got out of music for a number of reasons back in my early 20s, early mid 20s, and then just hadn't I went off and did a whole nother career path and started a company and did all of this other stuff. And then in during the pandemic, right before the pandemic, actually, decided I wanted to learn how to play drums. I was like, I'd always wanted to learn drums and I hadn't picked up an instrument in so long. And I just remembered how much I missed it and how much I loved music. So I bought myself a drum kit and I started playing and then I bought a guitar because I thought, oh, I want to learn how to write a song, just
Yeah.
one song. And I never sung in front of anybody or anything. I was terrified of the idea. I was like, this is just a sort of self-empowerment thing. So bought a guitar and then the pandemic hit. And so I started writing and ended up holding myself up in my studio because I ended up loving the songwriting process and everything that came with it. And so that's how I got back into music.
Nice. And was the project Trashy Annie from the start, or how does Trashy Annie kind of come into play?
Uh, Funny story about that. So when I picked up that guitar for the first time,
Hmm.
and I decided I wanted to check this box and get over this fear of the idea of singing in front of anybody and just do one open mic. I
Hmm.
wanted to do a song that I wrote at an open mic and check that box and move on with my life. Well, so I wrote a tune with all this with the one chord that I could play on the guitar. So it was all a one chord song and I was super proud of it. And I went out and I did it at an open mic and I didn't die and no tomatoes came flying at my head. Like it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. And I thought, wow, I really love songwriting. So then I sort of went down the rabbit hole like we do. And I
Hmm.
wanted to learn about how do you produce a song? How does one
Nice.
even put a song on Spotify? Like, what even is that whole world? So I took that song into the studio, learned how to produce it, learned how to do all that stuff, got it out into the world, was super proud of it. Pandemic was in full blown craziness at this point. So I wanted to make a music video and I'd never done that either. So I was like, I don't really know how people do this. I'd never had a YouTube channel or anything like that. So I got my iPhone out and I started, filming myself out in my little country road out in Gonzales, Texas. And I made my own music video and I
Nice.
was really proud of it.
Oh no.
One of the very first comments I got was this woman getting on there talking about my clothes being too young for me. And it kind of broke my heart for like 10 minutes. And then I came back out of that hole and I thought, what in the world? Why are people being so judgy and horrible to each other? And so I decided to name the band Trashy Annie because if people were going to call me trashy for the clothes that I wear on stage, so be it. And that's the story. And so I'm 47 years old and yeah, I started a rock band at 44, but who gives a shit, right? Like
Yeah,
we have this one life. Do what you want to do no matter what your age is or anything else or what anybody else has to say about it. So yeah, that's where the band name came from and I'm really proud of it because it sort of defines what I represent as a human being. Just be yourself. Do your
yeah,
thing.
for sure, for sure. That's one thing I really respect about everything that you're doing, like everything that you're doing right now, all the music is you're very unapologetically you. Like even in the brief conversations we had, it's like there's a level of authenticity that's coming from you as a person, you as a musician, and then your music in general, which is why I think a lot of people resonate with it really well, is there's a certain level of authenticity that's coming through. Now, is it uh blown up a little bit and turned up to 11? Yes, maybe. I don't know. You'd have to be the one to answer that, but still, there's a level of authenticity there.
It that makes me so happy to have you say that, because I think that's one thing with my music that's really important to me
Mm,
is being genuine and doing what I want to do, not trying to do it for other people. I'm not
mm,
trying to write for something that I think the fans are going to love. I write it because I love it and because it's a story I want to tell, and hopefully it resonates with other people, and it's proven to so far. And I do think that just feeling like my art is very genuine to who I am as a human is a very
mm.
important thing. And like you said, sure, do I wear tutus and sparkly bras when I go to the grocery store? Maybe sometimes, not all the time. Most of the times it's sweatpants and flannels,
Yeah.
But so sure, there's a brand and there's an image that goes along with this whole thing. But what it really represents is do what the hell you want to do. I don't care how old you are. And as
Hmm.
long as that keeps coming through, both with the brand and with the music, then I think I've done my job as a songwriter and hopefully connecting with other people that feel the way I do about life.
For sure, for sure. Now, oh, how would you define Trashy Annie? Is it straight rock? Because I pick up some like country influences in there as well. Or how do you kind of define Trashy Annie?
I've gone through a lot of iterations on this question because it's
Mm-hmm.
hard. I sort of, in some ways, talk about it as rock and roll with a country soul, because it's kind of got the songwriting aspect of country music where it's
Hmm.
story driven and that kind of thing with the lyrics, but it's sort of put into a rock and roll package.
Hmm.
Um, More recently, somebody defined it as kind of rebel rock
Hmm.
because a lot of the storytelling aspect is about, hey, be yourself, love yourself, do this, do that, whatever. We talk about all kinds of
Yeah.
things in the lyrics of these tunes. And to your point, being sort of unapologetic about that. And so I think that it resonates with people who identify as kind of rebellious and outliers, and people who don't subscribe to the societal norms that a lot of people try to put on them. And so I think that it is a little bit challenging to define us, but I think we are sort of rock and roll more than anything else,
Hmm.
and some other stuff thrown in. And I agree with you. I think it's the way that I sing and the way that I write definitely have kind of a country flair to it. And
Hmm.
so those two things are a little bit smushed together.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get I won an award this year, uh the 2023 CMA of Texas Americana Artist of the Year.
Mhm.
And so that is how some people, especially Texas world, sort of define us, is in the Americana genre, because we're sort of a mix of things.
Yeah, for sure. It's really cool because I've seen a lot of they I it's kind of there's a couple of Texas bands that are in a similar situation as you, where they're very rock to their core, but they still have these like country influences, whether it's the songwriting, whether it's some of the instrumentation and how they kind of package themselves. But there's this really cool thing going on where they're merging two genres that are, I don't want to say polar opposites, but it doesn't sound like they should go together, but they melt together perfectly. Like
I
it,
love that.
it's really cool, and I really hope this like becomes a more normalized thing. Actually, one of my buddies here in Waco, he has a band, and they claim or they say that they're Black Dirt or Texas Black Dirt, I guess is what they're calling themselves.
That's
Um,
cool.
and so it's just like really cool to see musicians challenging the norm.
I
So,
agree. And I think that the internet and streaming platforms and all of the things have created this just open environment for people like me who probably never would have had a shot at getting my music out into the world had we not gone through this DIY revolution
mm,
with music. And I think that that is exactly right, is what you're talking about with bands sort of pushing the envelope and mixing genres. I remember the first time I heard a country band that had a rap song. And I was like, this is interesting,
Yeah.
two genres that don't normally go together. And
Yeah.
now it's pretty commonplace to hear that, sort of rap influence in country music. And so I just think it's so cool because, at the end of the day, it's all blues, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just
Right.
everything comes from there.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's really cool that there are fewer boundaries. It does make it really hard to figure out how to describe ourselves to new fans who
Hmm.
may be, checking us out and wondering what kind of music we are, or venues. What do you play? Well, I don't know. What do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want us to say?
I
So
mean,
yeah,
but I was gonna say, but
changing
that
times.
that that just kind of opens up the door for you a little bit more. Like if you have that ability to mold yourself into certain genres, where if it's like you need to play more of a mellow acoustic set. I
Yep.
saw that you had a show. What was that last night that you did like an acoustic set?
Yeah, just did a solo songwriter showcase with some acoustic friends of mine, and we had a stand-up bass and a couple of guitars and a fiddle and had a blast. And I love because I have a whole bucket of music that belongs in that world.
Hmm.
And we actually it's challenging even during rehearsal because we'll sit down and say, okay, how do we need to package this song? And maybe that song really does need that sort of folksy treatment, and
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily work very well when you're going to go play a punk rock club and everybody's sweaty hands in there getting crazy, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, we're going to take it down a notch, bring out the fiddle. And so it can be very cool if you do it right, or it can be
Hmm.
weird and clunky. And so what I try to do is just like you said, pick the right bucket of tunes for the venue. If it's a
Hmm.
dance hall, well, let's play our country stuff and get
Yeah.
everybody on the floor. If it's a rock club, let's play our rock and roll. So
Yeah.
it's I love it because it as a songwriter where that's the only thing I really know how to do. I
Hmm.
can dabble on instruments, but really I just surround myself with really good musicians to make that part come alive. But as a songwriter, I love writing all over the place. I've written a rap song for the next album, and I've got some stripped down acoustic and some rock and roll and all the things. So it's just really cool to be able to have outlets for all of that stuff. And like you said, occasionally just pick up an acoustic guitar and sit down and play something really sad and stripped down.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I do want to talk about your new album here in just 1 second, but there's one question that I want to ask before we get there. As essentially a newer musician, but you started a little bit later in life, what keeps you going? What's your motivation?
It's if I knew I could probably make a bajillion dollars selling that, right? But I will tell you that I wake up every morning thinking about lyrics. It does not, without fail. I have to take weed gummies at night to make myself sleep through the night. Otherwise, I'm just up all night thinking about lyrics and music and how I can craft something cool. And so I don't know. I think when a person finds the thing that they were meant to do, and this sounds kind of woo woo, whatever, but I think that's its own motivation. If you find something that you love so much that you can't not do it, it's going to get you up every morning wanting to do it again, because this is not an easy industry, as you know. There are 1,000 closed doors to every open one, and there's 1,000 no's for every yes. And you have people shit on your art all day long, and yet you got to get up again and do it the next day. But if you love it enough, that part doesn't matter. I don't care that people don't like my music. I care that I have these great fans that do, but the naysayers, who cares? My stuff's not going to be for everybody. Nobody's is. But
Mm,
that's not going to stop me from doing the thing I love. And so that's the motivation. I think is just this is something I can't not do. So it's easy.
for sure. I
Yeah.
100% agree.
Yeah.
Um, so you just dropped a new album in back in May. What's the story behind this? How long have you kind of been working on this album?
Well, it's my first album, my first full album. So I had done that one chord song during the pandemic, and then I had followed that up with a second release called Nuclear Meltdown that I was super proud of, and then went back and built with that team that helped me on Nuclear Meltdown finish out the rest of the full album. And so it's probably been 2 years in the works, just getting, from this time I started writing it to the time that it was actually released. And I'm really proud of that album. So I think it came out great. And it's got a mix of hard rock stuff all the way down to very stripped down fiddle, acoustic, kind of creepy vibe
Mm,
stuff. It's got a mix of things. And I think that the story behind this album is that, like I said, you're correct in saying that I'm sort of unapologetically me. And I wasn't sure when I started putting this thing together, should we be all over the place with this album, or is it going to give people whiplash? Are they going to be like,
mm,
oh God, fiddle and like Quentin
yeah.
Tarantino song? Okay, big rock song. Okay, song that makes me cry, whatever. And I decided that this is me as an artist. And so this is what you get. And when I started building my social media stuff, because I had never done social media, not with any level of business
Mm,
mind prior to getting into music, because I hate it. I hate everything it represents. However, I knew I had to do it getting into music. So when I started this whole process, I started building up my Facebook stuff and my Instagram channel and whatever. And I got all these just awful comments because, people are so judgy. Like the lady who
mm,
told me those clothes were too young for me. Those people are everywhere out there. And
yeah.
it's very easy for them to say horrible, mean things from behind the anonymity of a computer screen. So I got all these mean comments. And at first it was again, kind of heartbreaking. And then I decided, no, 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 no. So I started screenshotting all of the mean comments that people would say, and I ended up, when I got the album all together, I decided to put all of those comments on the back of the album as the album art. And then the front of the album is a big old glittery middle finger, and the album is called Sticks and Stones. And so I'm very proud of where it ended up. And I didn't compromise, and I didn't let those people get to me. I just embraced it all and spun it in the most positive way I possibly could figure out how
Nice.
to do with negative shitheads.
Hmm.
And that's where we ended up. So
I must say the album art is probably my favorite part of the whole package. Like,
yep.
it's just one of those things where it's just like, okay, I don't even have to listen to the music, and I already understand what the album's about.
I love that you said that. That makes me super happy because, yeah, that was one of those things that I was proud of, to just, stick it to the people who are mean out there, because everybody goes through this. We all get horrible comments made to us for no reason whatsoever. And it does not need to be like that. I can't think of ever saying anything mean to anybody on social media. Why? Why would you do that? So anyway, that's where that comes from. But yeah, I'm really proud of that album. It's released under Cleopatra Records. I was just signed to their label at the end of this last year. And yeah, it's a good one. I hope people go take a listen to it, because
Yeah,
it's a fun rock album with some other stuff in there too.
yeah, it's a fun album. I've enjoyed listening to it, and I'll continue to listen to it as until you release new music. So, um, but really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat with me. It was an absolute blast. We'll have to sit down. I feel like there's a lot more to dive into here. So down the road, we'll have to do a full length podcast and have all that fun. But for anybody that wants to check out your music, interact with you on social, any of that fun stuff, where's the best place to find you?
So I have a website that's got links to everything at trashyannie.com. And you can also follow our tour schedule through that site, sign up for bands in town to find out when we're going to be playing. We tour nationally, so we'll be in your area at some point. And then we're on Spotify and all of the other stuff under Trashy Annie. The only one outlier is Instagram, and that's Trashy Annie Music. But otherwise, everything else is under Trashy Annie.
That sucks when you have that one outlier. It's like you got everything just right, but there's that one where it's like,
And
damn
they're
you.
not even well, and they're not even using it. I don't even know who has it. But the thing that I thought is, well, it might be better to have it say Trashy Annie Music anyway, because otherwise people are thinking it's, who knows what they're thinking it
Yeah,
is. So
yeah,
when they see Trashy Annie Music follows them, they don't immediately think it's a porn site.
right,
So
right.
I thought it's probably okay.
Yeah,
Worked out for the best, I guess.
for sure, for sure. But really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat with us. And we'll be right back after this musical break.